When I was still going to writers' groups, there was a question that I'd regularly get asked about the Tomb Lords. For those who haven't read any of my books, the Tomb Lords are a group of liches/mummies who rule over the area we would call Egypt, and are some of the major villains in the series. Now, liches in the books don't stop decaying after they become undead. A lich can keep shambling around as an undead corpse forever, but they don't stop rotting until they become a skeleton. The Tomb Lords are a little better preserved thanks to their mummification, but they've been around for so many millennia that it really doesn't make much difference. One such mummy is Merishank, a vain, formerly beautiful princess who isn't happy about the fact that all of her original flesh rotted off of her, and she resorts to having beautiful young girls killed on a regular basis and grafting their flesh onto her skeleton so she can more or less look like she did when she was alive. Admittedly, this is pretty gross, and I had people ask me why she had to do it this way and not just use some kind of magic spell that siphons the youth and beauty out of young girls instead of going the surgery route. Spells like that are, admittedly, a staple of fairy tales everywhere. And the other example comes from Amenhotep, the god king of the Tomb Lords and one of the two characters fighting for the position of the series' big bad. He uses a lot of propaganda and manipulation to control people, and he does this using real-life manipulation tactics and gaslighting, instead of some magical mind control spell. Complaints about this one are less about how gross this is, and more about it occupying more chapters and pages than if you could just snap his fingers and mind control people. The problem with both of these is that Heroes of Janan is set in a world where everyone can potentially do magic. Not everyone learns how, and they still live in a world where they need farmers, plumbers, carpenters, and airship crews, but everyone has the possibility of becoming a wizard. There's no genetics. You don't inherit what kinds of powers you can learn. It's treated like any other field of science. If you know what you're doing, you can do it. And the problem that I realized when I started world-building this series, even before I wrote the first chapter, is that there are certain types of magic that I just can't include if I'm going to design a magic system like this. See, while a setting where magic is restricted to only a minority of the population brings a lot of other problems, particularly when someone starts mentioning eugenics, and it often tends to be the result of an author who just wants a reason for the main characters to be super special, there are a few problems it doesn't create. Most notably, you don't have to ask the question, if magic can do that, why isn't everyone using it for that all the time? A spell that could transfer youth, beauty, and health from one person to another is something that lots of people would do if they could. Heck, there are people in Hollywood who have admitted on live TV that they do this already. Just take a look at this.
But what is it?
It is an extraction from a piece of skin that came from a young person far, far away, and they somehow figured out how to extract.
It's foreskin from a Korean baby. That's what it is.
Okay.
Who comes up with this?
By the way, while this video is mostly about magic, any sci-fi setting where technology can do something similar would have the same problems. If a machine can transfer youth from one person to another, it's the sort of thing that everyone would fight for control over, and someone would get the idea to mass produce it. And there aren't a lot of good ways to cover for this. One problem I had with Shadow of the Conqueror is that the main character Dalen rejuvenates his youth using a process that brings him back from the edge of old age to his 20s. The fact that this works when he's nearing death already raises the question, why aren't more people trying to do this? Maybe the process just doesn't work for everyone. Okay, but it's worth a shot, right? Maybe if it fails, it kills you. Fair enough. But what if you were already dying of old age? Maybe the process is incredibly expensive, and not everyone can afford the cost. Sure, but some people have to be able to afford it or it wouldn't exist, and those people are going to try it, right? Maybe the price is something unethical, like sacrificing someone else's life. I mean, do I really need to explain this one again? The thing is, all of these restrictions become more like costs than actual barriers. And when the prize on the other end is being able to go from dying of old age to being young and healthy again, some people are going to take their chances with it. Even if the knowledge of how this ritual, potion, or whatever process you've created in your work is somehow lost, the fact that it existed at some point is going to create a rush of people trying to discover it again. Do you have any idea how much the Spanish spent in real life searching Florida for the Fountain of Youth back in the days of colonization? And that didn't even exist. The fact of the matter is that certain things, like eternal youth, or being able to just mind control anyone you want, are too tempting for people to leave them alone. Just the chance that they might work is enough to motivate people to keep searching for them at any cost. And while some of these things, like mind control, are the sort that only a villain would really want to use on the regular, that doesn't stop people from abusing them. It just means abuse is the only way that this stuff gets used. And it's not just about the people who can afford to use them. Many works of fiction are literally built around a team of hired mercenaries trying to seek out and find the magical thing that makes people live longer or whatever on behalf of some rich and morally dubious person in the background. So it becomes especially jarring whenever someone introduces a magical thing, again, Shadow of the Conqueror as an example, where the characters just whip out an ability that realistically more people would try to use, and somehow it's never used again. Seriously, just having another character who had undergone the same process as Dalen would fix this, somewhat, because it would acknowledge that he's not the only person trying to use this kind of magic. Another example that I want to bring up is anything that involves reshaping a person's body, particularly their assets. Unlike the eternal youth thing, this one would be favored by young people, especially teenagers who don't know what they're doing. Let me tell you a little secret about nature and selection. Nature compels animals to select for certain traits, and nature doesn't always set an upper limit to those traits, because the upper limit is literally whatever could exist in nature. For example, most birds, like chickens, will sit on the biggest egg in their nest, because that egg has the highest chance of survival. The biggest egg that should be in their nest should have been small enough to come out of the chicken. If scientists put an ostrich egg in the chicken's nest, which is bigger than any chicken egg should be, the chicken's instincts don't tell it that, because it didn't evolve to have scientists put ostrich eggs in the wrong nest. Cuckoos explicitly take advantage of this by laying their eggs in the nests of birds that have smaller eggs. When applied to humans, some of the things that people select for in a partner don't have an upper limit for the same reason. Although, there is some evidence that humans do have upper limits for what they're looking for, it's just really rare for them to come up in real life. For example, the often cited optimal ratio of 36-24-36 is thought to be an ideal amount for a woman to give birth, but the chest size capping out at 36 instead of something higher is thought to be related to her ability to outrun a predator. A woman with honkers so big she can't move isn't sexy, at least not in the real world. But, as we've seen with plastic surgery in the last couple of decades, what people are attracted to isn't as influential in the cosmetic industry as what people think they're attracted to. Seriously, I don't think speculative fiction has come close to the horrors that teenagers, especially teenage girls, have done to themselves in real life. And before we forget, let's talk about invisibility for a moment. You know how in the Elder Scrolls games there's various forms of illusion magic that makes you invisible? In Skyrim, you can use a muffle spell to make your character move silently, and while invisibility spells wear off if you interact with anything, in Oblivion, you have chameleon spells, which you can stack to the point where you're effectively invisible and can stay that way no matter what you interact with. Do I really need to explain why this would be a problem?
All I wanted was the American dream. What every immigrant wants when he comes to our shores or over our fences. To get his rocks off indiscreetly and invisibly for free in a woman's public restroom or dressing area of a lingerie shop.
Yeah, so exactly how are you going to rein stuff like this in if the magic or sci-fi tech is available? In a sci-fi setting, it's easier to maintain the idea that it's too expensive for most people to use invisibility just for voyeurism, especially if adult material is available online for free. But in a fantasy setting where wizards are involved, forget necromancers or conjurers, illusion mages are going to be the biggest menaces to society. It's probably worth mentioning that in the Elder Scrolls, you have a lot of illusion magic that also allows you to charm people. They got rid of that in Skyrim, but you still have calm spells, which are significantly less of a problem. Technically, vampires still have a power that lets them charm people, but that's an ability exclusive to vampires. And basically everyone, as soon as they learn the charm spell in Oblivion, uses it to get better prices when haggling with merchants. And that's in a game that has no romance mechanic. So yeah, I didn't give Amenhotep a mind control spell because everyone would use that all the time. One area where I've noticed people have started to pay more attention to this is the subject of love potions. In the Harry Potter world, those things are bought and sold on the open market with no consequences. And we actually get to see the effects of one when Ron consumes chocolates that were meant for Harry that some girl drugged. Oh, and let's not forget, Voldemort is the way that he is because he was conceived while his dad was under the influence of a love potion. But you know what no one ever talks about? What is your magical society going to do when a guy gets accused of struggle snuggle and he claims that he was under the influence of a love potion as a defense? How would your society's legal system handle that? And you might be thinking, oh, but there would be strict laws against that sort of thing. The government of a magical society would have an entire department of the police dedicated to making sure that people didn't use magic that way. Dude, the government would be the #1 group of people who would misuse this stuff all the time. First, you can bet your bottom dollar the government would use mind control if they had it. Second, there would probably be a government spook in your house using an invisibility cloak to watch and record everything you do. Maybe he even uses that muffle spell so you can't hear him fap while you're taking a shower. And while we're at it, government officials would use unethical rejuvenation all the time just so they could stay in power forever. Some of the mummies in Congress right now are probably using the same technique as Sandra Bullock. So what can you do if you're a writer and you want to avoid these issues? Well, my solution, as you can see, is to just not give people the option by not including these kinds of spells in the first place. Technically, in the second book, I do mention a kind of love potion sold exclusively on the black market, where the stuff is considered too dangerous to be properly illegal because governments of the world don't even want to acknowledge it exists. Specifically because they don't want to deal with people charged with struggle snuggle using it as a defense in court. That's actually another way that you can deal with these kinds of things, but it only works with things that you can actually trust the government not to abuse. So love potions, maybe, but not much else. Honestly, I don't have a lot of other solutions for this. It gets kind of scary because, at least in the sci-fi department, some of these things might actually be problems we have to deal with in the future. We've already got the body modification problem right now. So I guess I'm just gonna go and review today's featured video game. Mind Over Magic is a side-scrolling survival base-building game in which you must lead a handful of mages to defend a Hogwarts-style magical school from an encroaching, evil fog that appears to have come from some sort of monster from the dungeons under the school grounds. While there isn't much in terms of story, the gameplay, the exploration of the underschool, and even the process of trying to expand your school and train better mages that can track down and defeat the source of the fog is incredibly fun. I ended up having to start over several times because I built myself into a corner and couldn't make the schoolrooms I needed for progression. And you absolutely need to pick good starting faculty. I recommend at least one nature mage and one earth wizard, because the former can quickly chop down trees while the latter is the fastest builder. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Go give Mind Over Magic a try. Alright, that's all I have for today. Check out my books on Amazon, hit that like and subscribe button, and thank you all, and goodbye.